Hello everyone and welcome back. We're ready for qualifying. The session we've been waiting for. Finally it's here. Well, we had a dramatic FP3 session to end. That was absolutely brutal for Oliver Behrman and of course Gabriel Bortoleto. Oliver Behrman crashing into the barrier during the red flag period, and the stewards have given him 4 penalty points and a 10-second time penalty, or 10 place grid penalty for the race on Sunday. So absolutely brutal. Understandable, you're meant to try and be safe under red flag conditions, yellow flag conditions. You can't afford to do anything like that. They did, and they have been punished accordingly. So a shame for Oliver Behrman, but it's the way it goes in Formula 1, and they need to make sure they take a bit more care. That's the second time this season so far that they've had penalties for red flag infringements. That was, of course, back in Monaco when they overtook under red flag conditions. 4 votes in the chat right now for the qualifying order. Norris, that will be 2 votes, 1 vote for Piastri, 1 vote for other, and that's Bassoon saying Antonelli easy pole. Well, it could happen. Could it happen? It could happen. It's possible. It's not impossible. It would be very difficult to achieve, but I'm sure that's what the target is for the Mercedes crew right now, at least with one of the cars, to try and take it to the top spot. We're all out on track right now and underway with the session. Currently, risk of rain is 30% here for qualifying. The chance of rain is realistically higher for tomorrow, but that's Pierre Gasly reporting that rain is already on the circuit right now. So we could have an absolutely amazing qualifying session here. Looking at the weather on the report right now, the chances are only 10% according to Google. But Silverstone circuit, they're saying 30%. Sunday, tomorrow's race, it looks like it will be much more likely, so that could be absolutely awesome as well. If we're already getting drizzle now, what would we get if we push it even further? We don't quite know. McLaren's still favourite to go to the top of the times, I'm going to assume. But it's still going to be difficult as the Ferraris were competitive throughout the entire weekend so far. And this is where the fastest session begins. So they have to nail everything. Bortoleto out on track. Going purple in the middle sector as they're setting their initial laps, of course. But finally out on track after their issues in FP3 at the end. Losing the front left suspension on the car as they spun at Beckett's corner and cut the entirety of Chapel, went over the curb, over the grass, hit a bump, and the suspension just completely snapped. They are the first one to set a lap, a 27.4. Not going to be the fastest lap of the overall session, but it's a banker at least. Nico Hülkenberg had a big moment at the final corner. I believe that's to start their lap. So they've immediately invalidated their lap effectively. You're not going to be able to go very competitive. As you can see, they've actually still managed to go right behind their teammate. Lance Stroll beats them by 0.5 of a second. But we had to see the McLarens cross the line. Alex Albon coming into the final few corners to go for their lap, actually. And I do apologise, I'm completely out of sync here with the order. It's Alex Albon who does go to the top of the times. Just watching to see what Carlos Sainz does. They're currently making their way out of the pit lane, it looks like. I'm just trying to see where I am relative to everything else. Syncing it up. It's a little bit complicated, it seems. Verstappen through turn 5. More or less synced up and ready to go. Verstappen purple in the first sector, looking competitive as they have done so far today. They didn't have that same feeling yesterday. At least that's not the feeling that they gave, according to the timings. Yuki Tsunoda, not too far away, but still a little bit of a struggle to get with that Red Bull. Seeming, according to my calculations, a bit more confident than they have done in previous weekends. Verstappen goes purple in the middle sector. They have Albon to beat right now. Norris and Piastri currently not quicker than Verstappen. Piastri a fair way off. Norris very close to the Red Bull driver. 34.5. Way off in the middle sector though for Norris. Max Verstappen, a brilliant lap. 3.5 tenths of Albon. It's Norris who we're looking to try and go next. Antonelli across the line. P3 for the young Italian. 4 tenths away. Fairly close to Alex Albon, but they want to be really beating the Williams car. There's Lando Norris. 1/10 just over behind the Dutchman. Purple final sector by a couple tenths, but that middle sector really didn't work out for Norris there. Piastri about to cross the line, but it's Leclerc who goes first ahead of Piastri, and it's P3 for Charles Leclerc, 3.5 tenths behind Max Verstappen. We're on a 26.041 already in qualifying here. We're looking to go a little bit quicker than that, as we did a 25.4, I think, in the end of FP3. I want to double check that one if I can. I think I've actually lost all the results. Lando Norris, pole position last time around. Charles Leclerc, P2. Oscar Piastri, Lewis Hamilton, then George Russell. Max Verstappen looking to better his P7 in Austria. And I am just trying to look at the order for practice 3. It was a 25.498, so we are almost there already in Q1. We do have the wet conditions, of course, out as well, so it's surprising to see that we're going this quick already. We've got 9 minutes on the clock, plenty of time in the session for more improvements. Of course, it was only a banker for Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri has top the times ahead of Max Verstappen. It's Alonso to P3 with a pretty good lap. We've not seen anybody run on the medium tyre as we were maybe expecting, and that makes a little bit more sense, especially since the track is cooler, much cooler than it was earlier on. Well, I say that the track surface is actually pretty is just a little bit hotter, but the air temperature a little bit cooler. That will change throughout the session as we have the cars drive across the circuit. So George Russell communicating with his engineer, trying to figure out what's going on, and it seems a little bit stressful right now. He tells the team to calm down, not stress, and tell him what they're going to do. They're going to box for 2 laps of fuel and then go on to the same set of tyres. So 2 qualified laps. Oh, a big spin. Colapinto round at the final corner. Oh, and it's going to be the barrier as well. They find Colapinto out in Q1. Unless they can get that car around, they're in the gravel. They do find the traction. They find the traction. And they've managed to get out of it, but they're surely going to be damaged. There is going to be gravel everywhere. That is very likely to be Colapinto's session done. But at the final corner, they've chucked everything away. The car looks intact. They're just traveling very slowly, and there's gravel everywhere. So unless that's cleared, if we continue green flags and we don't get any clearance from the gravel, then we're not really going to have that good of a chance of getting severe improvements. That is going to throw a spanner in the works. Fernando Alonso now going to be happy with that one. A very light tap with the front end of the wall. But because the outside of the circuit just before the barrier is concrete, they could find the grip on the rear right. That's how they got themselves going once again. And that's why we're still green flags with 7 minutes to go. But that final complex of corners, final corner is going to be pretty difficult to deal with. Sector 2, yellow flag. Red flag is called. As expected, the red flag has been brought out. The gravel just wouldn't really be ideal for the drivers to continue. It's going to give Colapinto another opportunity to get involved here, but 6 minutes on the clock. Everybody's going to come into the pit lane. Everybody's then going to queue out to get ready to the final for the final minutes. And to do that, it's going to be difficult. It's actually Franco Colapinto who parks up in the beginning of the circuit, I believe. So that's why we've got the red flag. Okay, so I see there was damage on the rear wing, it looks like, for Colapinto, so that's why they ended up going in. The M plate on the front is also not in an ideal position. Currently Colapinto now P19, and with Gasly hoping to improve, that's going to probably be last position for the Alpine driver. Oliver Behrman sits P8, hoping to start as high as possible, or qualify as high as possible, because they're going to get that 10-place grid penalty. Antonelli as well, they're going to get a 3-place grid penalty, so they're hoping to do exactly the same thing. Now, Ocon and Behrman, sorry, the two Haas drivers have struggled to qualify in the recent races, effectively, and Behrman, this is their opportunity to try and make that change. Although they're not going to be fully rewarded for it, they have to try and do something. So the situation that they're in now, the teams, is that you've got a session that's been severely shortened and a few drivers who haven't set their quick laps. That means that the cars that are generally faster, they can set a fairly clean lap and they should hopefully get into the session. But if they mess up with one opportunity to get things right, with the weather very, very difficult, they're going to have a pretty tough time, I'm sure. It's still all up in the air here for qualifying. Currently, Bortoleto, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Colapinto and Gasly are all in the drop zone. Colapinto will not continue qualifying and will stay where they are. Colapinto very upset with that one, not showing really any confidence in what happened. They were sorry to the team. And well, Colapinto is on a race-by-race contract, so it's really not looking good for their situation right now. They're having some issues like that. Waiting for confirmation until we go once again for qualifying here. 6.5 minutes on the clock. Currently a red flag after Franco Colapinto has spun at the final corner. Lightly hit the barrier. They have retired from the session. And their car was stationary on track at turn 2. That's why the red flag was brought out. It wouldn't have been brought out if they hadn't put their car stationary on the circuit, which really for all the drivers is very fortunate. If they hadn't have done that, then that would have been a very dirty circuit with gravel all over at the final corner, and a few people probably not improving because of that. And that would have been brilliant for Behrman, Hadjar, for Alonso as well. Sonoda may have been lucky. Currently they're very lucky to be in the top 15, as they're very close to being knocked out by Bortoletto, who had issues earlier on in FP3, hoping to get on top of that this time around and carry the good momentum that they had in Austria. The session will resume at 3:21 local time. Just in a few minutes, we'll be able to get going once again and see if Pierre Gasly can get themselves out of the dumps right now. And here we go. Just waiting for a few seconds and then we will be green flag once again here in Silverstone. The drops are on the cameras. The rain is still around. 6 minutes on the clock. There it is. Green flag. The two McLarens leave the pit lane. A few others will probably be going out as well. But I'm really interested to see on what the run plan is here, because we've got these tricky conditions where it could get pretty rainy, it could get pretty greasy. We heard over the radio George Russell looking to plan 2 laps of fuel to be put in their car to do 2 runs on their final stint in Q1. And that shows that a lot of teams want to try and just stay out and make use of the driest part of the circuit. Oscar Piastri reporting that there's some drops and it might be worse than before. That could be bad news for everybody in the drop zone. Obviously, they've only really set their initial laps, maybe 1 or 2 set another lap. However, with the I'm completely mind blocked right now. I forgot what I was saying. A few drivers setting their banker laps, but we've still got opportunities to improve. These cars can go a lot quicker. They can go a lot quicker. It's just whether can they go a lot quicker in the greasy conditions. That we don't know. 50% chance that Piastri will take pole position, 33 for Norris, and 17% for Antonelli. Those are the votes. Who will be right? Who will succeed? It's Piastri. It's very slow. Backed out. Yeah, very slow on the exit of turn 4. Not looking to improve so far. Hamilton's saying that the track is definitely not the same. Much more slippery. It is very, very, very wet. Leclerc being noted for a yellow flag infringement, and that is not good news when you're noted for something like that. Alex Albon improving in the first sector. Still looking quick, and improvements are possible for a few drivers here. Gasly still in the pit lane. Currently sat last place. They're not really gaining any time by doing that. Very bumpy on the exit of Chapel there for Alex Albon, half a tenth up. Looking to try and jump in front of that would be probably Behrman, not to Hadjar, but to P8 to get themselves a bit safer. Can they find any more time here in the final sector? It's going to be slippery. There's going to be gravel everywhere. They're soaring at the wheel. They go to P3 and improve massively. A tenth away from Piastri. Half a tenth away from Max Verstappen. Is that going to be their final lap in the session, or are they going to try and go again? Purple in the middle sector there for Verstappen. It's Lando Norris, who has just improved to P5 with their lap. Currently 1/10 away from their teammate, just over. So that's really where it's looking to be. Bortoletto to P11. Once again improving, but these laps aren't as quick as we were thinking they would be. Verstappen goes faster than anyone. A tenth ahead of Piastri now with that purple middle sector where they just seem to be mighty compared to the other cars. It's Leclerc and Verstappen who have the advantage in Sector 2 throughout this weekend so far, at least. But we're seeing a few more. That was Hamilton, who didn't go exactly slow in the first and third sector, but improved in the middle sector a little bit. Currently 4/10 away from the top time of Verstappen. Verstappen is a tenth ahead of everybody, 2/10 ahead of Albon. Tsunoda to P6 to bring themselves into a safer zone. It's Oliver Behrman who goes purple in the middle sector, a 34.4. for P3 at the moment. That's Ocon to P7, so the two Haas's are finding some good time right now. Is that the perfect time to do it, or is the track going to get drier and drier? Antonelli to P8. George Russell's going to have to find some improvement soon, but it's not looking so simple. Gasly is out on track now, and it's Lawson who's going to be starting a lap very, very soon. Actually, they have already started a lap. We're just waiting to see what they'll do in that first sector, if they'll improve. Charles Leclerc slower than they were before, 3/10 off in their first sector. 13th right now. And currently, they are in a dangerous position. I have a feeling that they could not be safe, which is a hell of a surprise, considering we thought the Ferraris would fight for the pole position and the win. Hamilton on the radio. Hamilton's not got enough fuel to go again, so they go into the pit lane, and that is going to be it for Lewis Hamilton. P11 hoping to not drop down too much. Charles Leclerc to P8 pushing down their British teammates. Hadjar currently... No, they are improving in the middle sector. It's Carlos Sainz who's purple. Lewis Hamilton at risk of being knocked out. Hadjar to P8 to demote Charles Leclerc just behind Esteban Ocon. Here we go with Liam Lawson, who just misses out on Hamilton to P14. They're there for now, but Carlos Sainz is improving in the first sector massively, and so is Pierre Gasly. Bortoletto and Liam Lawson are not safe. It looks like Hamilton has just got away with it though. There's only 2 opportunities for drivers to improve, and there's 2 positions to be dropped out, and that is laps done already by Lawson and Bortoletto. The qualifying is pretty much finished. The sun has come out at the final stages. Carlos Sainz is going to go across the line, and they're going to go to P8. A brilliant lap from Carlos Sainz right now. Where is it going to be for Liam Lawson, who is not improving the first sector, so that is their session done. It's Gasly, who's the final one to cross the line, and they push Liam Lawson out of the drop zone. Absolutely epic stuff from Pierre Gasly, who just makes it into the second part of qualifying in the tricky conditions. Liam Lawson devastated with that one, a 10th away from Gasly in the end. It's Bortoletto, Stroll, Hulkenberg, and Colapinto in P20. Absolutely brutal and drama all the way to the end of the session there. Liam Lawson complaining about grip at Stowe Corner. They went a little bit wide as they exited the corner and then grinded over the curb, so lost that time there. Would it have been a 10th? Maybe. It may have been a 10th. And it's very frustrating. But that's the way it goes. Hadjar's teammates are P9, so we know that Racing Bull car is quick, and it had confidence throughout the weekend, especially yesterday. Definitely looking very quick. The Saubers, I was trying to be optimistic, but looking at what they had over the weekend, it seemed to be that this is where they would have been anyway, so I don't think they can be too disappointed. It is from pole position all the way to Hulkenberg, 6/10, that's it. And it's a minute 30 lap, effectively. Absolutely brutal. The margins are tiny, but that's qualifying in 2025, the most exciting time to be alive for qualifying Formula One sessions. Franco Colapinto sounding very down. And a driver that sounds that down sounds to me like a driver that isn't sure of their future. Apart from Franco Colapinto, it's just been said that that would have been the tightest qualifying session ever of all time. Helped by the wet conditions, maybe, but still the improvements came in the final stages, so Max Verstappen really looking quick. And I think not including them in the order here for the predictions was maybe a little bit foolish of me now. Still, the predictions are towards Piastri for pole, then Norris, then Antonelli. No one for Hamilton here in the yellow side chat. Hamilton and Leclerc hoping to go quickly this weekend. They look to be the favourites to fight against McLaren. P10 and a 14. As it seemed to be that they maybe got a few things wrong there. Hamilton didn't have enough fuel to go again. The communication maybe not quite there in what they were intending on doing. Williams, they're going to be happy. Alonso's going to be happy. Aston Martin not going to be happy with one car being out at least. Russell and Antonelli, P11 and P12, and the cooler conditions, not where they would have hoped to be, considering these are the conditions that should be suiting their car a little bit more. Behrman, Ocon, Haas, very happy. Behrman trying to make the best out of their grid penalty situation, 10-place grid penalty for Oliver Behrman after their incident in practice 3. And then Antonelli after that incident at the Austrian Grand Prix turn 3 in the race. They've got that 3-place grid penalty. So currently P12, they need to get themselves as far up the top 10 as they possibly can. Two drivers who are really trying to hope that works out for them. Behrman, if they don't finish in the top 10, they'll find themselves starting last place because of that grid penalty. Tsunoda finds themselves into the second part of qualifying, but still in the drop zone as if it would be for Q2. They've got a bit more work to do. Hopefully no more red flags for his sake, so that they can have a bit more of a consistent session and get those laps in a little bit smoother, more consistently, more comfortably. Agile are going to be happy with their performance so far. But still, it's going to be tight here if they want to try and get it into Q3. There's a lot of mixing up to do right here. Not entirely sure what's going to happen. We've got Verstappen, we've got Hamilton and Alonso, along with Carlos Sainz, all race winners around this circuit. And they're all currently within the top 15. Alrighty, the session begins. Q2 is upon us. And one of the most important qualifying sessions you can get out of the 3. The 5 slowest cars are dropped out. And it's not quite Q3 where you're safe to be at least in the top 10 even if you mess up your lap. But you could still find yourself dropping down the order and being knocked out of the next part of qualifying, which would be absolutely devastating. So a very complicated part of the weekend due to the pressure moment where it can all go wrong but it could all go right. A team that is not usually known for being up the front, they could gain massively, or some of the favourites could end up making a mistake and not be rewarded with effectively what was the tightest qualifying session we've ever had here with the format that we're using, the 3 qualifying sessions of course. 6 tenths from P1 to P19 after Colapinto crashed earlier on. That's brutal, and it would have been even tighter for the top 10 of course. So this is going to be outright blistering pace with the greasy conditions, the cold conditions that these cars have to deal with. Right now, I believe the circuit is dried up a little bit. It has dried up a little bit. That is brilliant news for Mercedes as long as they get their run plan sorted out. They're not out on track right now. They're not making the most of it, but they're hoping that maybe a few cars will try and dry up the circuit a little bit. You can see a little bit of a line around here already because maybe the rain earlier on. It's still going to be easily dry, and that line will naturally come in as more cars drive this circuit in all the categories and all the events that this circuit hosts. But it definitely becomes more prominent when there is rain. Verstappen purple in the first sector, so the first car to go for a proper timed lap. 2 Haas up in front of them that shouldn't get in the way. You have no reason to get confused with any grid order. It should be all smooth sailing for Max Verstappen here as Esteban Ocon moves out the way. They've had some history in the past. Now Verstappen into Stoke corner purple in the middle sector as well, of course, as they are the first one to set their lap. Hamilton green and green in the first and middle sector. So not going faster than the Dutchman, who's really dialed it in here on Saturday. There's Verstappen across the line. 25.316, the fastest we've gone so far this weekend. Absolutely awesome. Hamilton 8 tenths away. Verstappen not happy with the gearing in their car, so looking to gain more time. That's Leclerc, who goes to P3 behind their teammate in the end. 2 tenths away from Lewis Hamilton. Purple in the middle sector for Oscar Piastri. Purple in the first for Carlos Sainz. Yuki Tsunoda, the bottom of the times right now. 1.1 seconds away from their teammate on top right now. Piastri setting exactly the same lap time as Max Verstappen. A 34.2 in the middle sector. Brutal pace in the middle once again, but incredible. That was George Russell complaining, I think, maybe about Antonelli, saying that their outlap is too slow, that they're going to have to back up to start their lap. So, a bit of a frustrating weekend so far for George Russell. The tensions are high. The rumours, of course, have come around, and those tensions aren't going to be made any easier by any difficulties that they may encounter on the race circuit. So far, there's still time in the session, 9 minutes on the clock. Purple middle sector for Lando Norris, a 0.1, a 34.1 in the middle sector for Lando Norris. That's huge, absolutely huge. Antonelli going green, so is Russell, looking to set their first laps of the session so far. Yuki Tsunoda, the slowest car out on track, as Lando Norris beats Max Verstappen by almost a tenth of a second. Antonelli to P11, not able to get within the top 10 so far, but Russell destroys that. 4 tenths away from Lando Norris's top time right now. Last year's pole sitter, of course. So currently 6 tenths ahead of their teammate Kimi Antonelli. Fernando Alonso That's Fernando Alonso being impeded by Kimi Antonelli at the beginning, or the final section of their lap. Would they get a penalty? I'm not convinced that it was close enough, but it may be. And that would be even more of a grid penalty for Antonelli. It would be a 6th place grid penalty probably that they'd be looking at. Currently on a 3-place grid penalty already for the young Italian. 7.5 minutes on the clock here in Silverstone. It's Lando Norris who's the top of the table with a 25.231. A 25.3 for Max Verstappen, who's the next closest car. The fastest lap time that we've seen around this circuit is a 24.303. We're currently 9 tenths away from the record. I don't think we'll find it today, unfortunately. And I don't think we're going to find a record to be beaten for a long time. I'll tell you, the new regulations that we're getting in 2026 is going to be slower than the current cars. So to try and find a way back up to that level of pace, this is our last weekend to try and do it in Formula 1. Other than that, we're going to have to wait a long time, a fair few years, unless one team makes an incredible breakthrough with technology. We're going to be waiting a very long time for any kind of change. Alright, everybody in the pit lane at the moment. 5 minutes on the clock. That's still counting down, but no one's in a rush right now to get onto the circuit. A few cars finally now getting fired up. Hamilton currently not in a great position. Charles Leclerc is going to jump ahead of them. But we've got a lot of cars going out very early on now. 4 minutes, 5 minutes on the clock effectively. And what they're hoping for is to do 2 runs to try and get the tyres a bit warmer and gain some lap time. Alrighty. It's Verstappen who once again will go around first to set a time lap. Currently sat P2, under a tenth behind Lando Norris, who is the top of the times. And we've really got to look at which cars can do multiple runs, because now we've got less than 3 minutes on the clock. A few cars left early to try and get these multiple runs. Hamilton definitely, I think, hoping to do that, as they were hoping to do so in Q2. And, sorry, no, Q1, as they are asking for another run, but they couldn't because they didn't have enough fuel. So now it's going to be looking like a different stats. Currently, 2 minutes and 30 on the clock, and they haven't started their lap. I don't think they're going to be able to go for a run and then a cooldown run. It's going to be 2 laps or either 2 prep laps. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here, but it's going to be difficult regardless. And there's a lot of pressure on a lot of drivers. All of the British drivers in the top 15. Is one of them going to be knocked out? It's Lando Norris who's currently the top. But it's Verstappen who is pushing 27.8 in the first sector. Not PBing, but still faster than Lando Norris in the first sector. Improving in the middle sector, a 34.216 for the Dutchman. As they come into the final chicane now, Albon will follow on with their lap. What can it be from Max Verstappen, who's going to go across the line to improve? And they do improve. No, they don't improve. That first sector wasn't enough. That final sector was mega, but it's not going to be enough to do anything about it. It's Albon who also doesn't improve position-wise. Lewis Hamilton going purple in the first sector. They'll go through Beckett's into Chapel Corner. They'll leave Chapel Corner, and we'll see what the sector line is for the Brit. It's green in the middle sector. It's half a second up. Currently, that would put them around about Oliver Behrman's territory, so they can find a bit more in this final sector as well. Charles Leclerc looking to do a similar thing and catch up to follow their teammate. Charles Leclerc to P1. It's Lewis Hamilton across the line to P1 as well. Half a tenth ahead of his teammate. He's actually managed to get it done with the final sector to back it up. Pushing down Hadjar, pushing down Ocon. Alonso to P7 ahead of Russell, but Russell's getting ready to start their final lap of the session. Max Verstappen P4. They've done their lap recently. That's probably going to be it. No, it will be it for Max Verstappen, and it's going to be it for Lando Norris as well. Antonelli on their way through the middle sector now. They've got Carlos Sainz up ahead, who hopefully is not going to get in their way. A little bit in the way there for Carlos Sainz, but probably not a penalty, as they weren't really in too bad of a position there. That's Piastri done with their qualifying. That's Behrman also looking not so quick in that first sector, and it's probably going to be it. That's Behrman done. Esteban Ocon, Antonelli, Gasly, all improving. Who's going to be safe? Who's not going to be safe? Sonoda is going to be knocked out of qualifying as Gasly goes to P9 to demote them. Carlos Sainz now the next to be knocked out. Is it going to be possible for Andrea Kimi Antonelli across the line? The Mercedes driver does it, and they get ahead of George Russell. They've got through to Q3, and they've knocked out Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon. P14. The Williams drivers that were looking so quick so far this weekend are both out here in qualifying. Carlos Sainz P11, Yuki Tsunoda P12. It's Hadjar, Albon and Ocon. Behrman Alex Albon, incredibly frustrating, exclaiming over the radio, says, "My bad, guys, we made it difficult for ourselves." So as a team, they have got themselves knocked out. And they're going to be frustrated with that one. Now, Oliver Behrman has managed to get themselves into the next part of qualifying, and that is brilliant news for their stance, of course. Esteban Ocon just about moving out the way of Max Verstappen's qualifying time, but they didn't get through anyway. P15 for Esteban. Oliver Behrman really happy to be in a good position to try and not start last in this Grand Prix. But still, their first home Grand Prix, they're currently P6 and it's going to be taken away from them. And they know it's going to happen. Absolutely brutal. Kimi Antonelli doing a very similar thing and looking very strong. Gasly, from being at the back of qualifying of Q1 and looking to be knocked out until the final moments where their teammate crashed, now finds themselves into the top 10 once again. Absolutely brilliant stuff from Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso as well. Now, we're getting ready for the final part of qualifying. Q3 will start at 3:58. They actually made a mistake there. 4:58 they claim. Lewis Hamilton has topped the times with a 25.084. We're almost into the 24-second margin. The lap record here, 24.4, 24.3. So we've got still a way to get there if we want to even try and get there, which I don't think it's going to be possible. It was set by Lewis Hamilton himself. And they continue their good run at Silverstone, their home Grand Prix. The record holder of the most wins around this circuit, 9. And looking to try and make it another podium, 11 in a row so far. Make it 12, could they do? I think they qualified P2 last time in 2024. George Russell on pole position for that race with Mercedes, both of them. But in the end, George Russell had to retire the car, and it was Lewis Hamilton who took the victory. And to try and win their first race for Ferrari in their first season, in their first home Grand Prix, that would be absolutely incredible. 7 votes right now for who will take pole for the British Grand Prix. 43% for Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris 29%, 14% for Hamilton, and other, aka Kimi Antonelli, for 1 vote as well. The Hamilton hype is definitely coming back. Originally they had no vote to go for pole position from anyone, but now they finally got one. And here we go. Q3 about to begin. Let's get it. The best qualifying session of all. Not the most competitive, but it will be the one for the big positions. The final spot. Or the final attempt at going for the top spot, I should say. There's the clock running down. We begin here in Silverstone. In less than 12 minutes, or just in over just 12 minutes, Saturday will be done for Formula 1, and someone will be on pole position for the Great British Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri complaining over the radio about Kimi Antonelli being unsafely released directly in front of them. And they're going to try and fight everything they can to get Antonelli a further penalty so they can start as far ahead as possible. It's Oliver Bearman who will go to set the first lap of Q3, enjoying the British crowd. And every Brit is in the top 10 right now. Of course, Alex Albon racing under the Thai flag, but also half British as well. Unfortunately not in this session. But Russell, Norris, Hamilton and Bearman all here. And for a short period, we are about to see Oliver Bearman go to the top of the times for his home Grand Prix, and we'll try and stop the count there. I'm joking, of course. I want to see a nice tight battle for pole position. And it's Max Verstappen who has been mighty here so far in the afternoon of Saturday. Will they be able to hold on to it? Purple in the first sector. 27.7 versus a 27.7 from Oliver Bearman. So Bearman's still going fairly quickly. Just about half a tenth away. So obviously if that happens throughout the next few sectors, that will continue to be the case. But that's the first sector for Oscar Piastri to be a 0.6, and basically, yeah, a tenth ahead of Max Verstappen, looking incredibly quick right now. Oliver Bearman, though, final few corners coming into the complex, and they will finish their lap to top the times. Seems tidy so far for Oliver Bearman. The middle sector really not anywhere relative to Max Verstappen with the 34.1. It's very similar for Piastri. Piastri has the high ground over the two. There is Max Verstappen to P1, a 25.267. Oscar Piastri looking faster and faster than ever. A brilliant first sector. Will it be enough to get ahead in the final sector as well across the line? And they do so by 2.5 tenths over Max Verstappen. Antonelli has set their lap a little bit slower. Unfortunately, here we go with Lando Norris across the line for the home Grand Prix. It's 1.5 tenths behind. And absolutely split in between. I say that, not split in between, from Verstappen and Piastri. It's George Russell across the line, P4. Max Verstappen saying the car is so difficult as they are almost 3 tenths away. That's Charles Leclerc to P4, Hamilton to P2, as they just beat Lando Norris and they're almost a tenth within Oscar Piastri. That car is rapid. Fernando Alonso goes green and goes ahead of Behrman. Gasly looks to try and set their first lap as well as Behrman gets to the pit lane. Or looks to go to the pit lane at least. Gasly, final complex of corners. And across the line for the Frenchman. And they do get that. P10 in the end. Piastri on top of the times for now as the banker laps have been set. 6 minutes on the clock and the teams go into the pit lane to prepare the cars ready for their final laps. 31 degrees track temperature, 21 degrees air temperature. We have got a little bit hotter, and that's not the best news for the Mercedes cars that are hoping that it gets just colder and colder. Of course, as there's not any cars out on track right now, it will cool down a little bit. That 30.5 track temperature will bring itself down just by a small margin. It depends on how hot that sun is and how much it's shining, of course, in Silverstone. But we know the conditions have been tricky and the clouds are still out. So Oscar Piastri over the curb at Stowe Corner, and that's where they would lose some lap time. So Oscar Piastri's still got some time in this lap. And I think they may have some damage that the team are looking at the moment. Lewis Hamilton hoping that they've got what it takes to get to pole position here, at least the front row. And of course, tyres will be a thing. I don't know what drivers have done what, but they'll hope that they've got enough here for the final part of qualifying. It's currently Oscar Piastri with a 24.995. It's Lewis Hamilton in P2, followed by Lando Norris in P3. Verstappen, Leclerc and Russell, P6. Alonso in P7, and it's Behrman, Antonelli and Gasly, the last of the top 10 here in Q3. This is what it all counts for. If it's not for the World Championship, for Lewis Hamilton, for Lando Norris, for George Russell and Oliver Behrman, the Great British Grand Prix qualifying session is where they want to perform. Of course, in the race as well. But this is where it all begins. And George Russell's got a pole position around here before already. So has Lewis Hamilton. So is Charles Leclerc. so has Carlos Sainz, and I think Carlos Sainz got pole position. So has Max Verstappen. But Lando Norris has never done it before. They've got the car to do it. They just need to find the lap. They need to put it together. They did it in Monaco, and they took victory. Oscar Piastri has got everything to lose. It's realistically Pierre Gasly have everything to gain. They're pretty late out onto the track. Verstappen's still in the pit lane at the moment, waiting for the last second to go out. We're going to witness Antonelli go for their final run first. The young Italian at risk at getting a penalty after impeding Fernando Alonso in Q2, but I doubt anything will come from that. I'm sure we'll be all right with it. But they still do have that 3-place grid penalty that they've got to consider. So they're going to give it their absolute best to prevent them starting from outside of the top 10. It will then be Behrman, followed by Norris and Piastri to set their laps. Verstappen is out on track right now as Antonelli approaches them as well. The pressure is on. The hearts are racing. There's 1.5 minutes on the clock, just over that, and Lando Norris begins the most important qualifying lap of the year. For their circumstance, it's all or nothing. Currently sitting P3, not on the front row where they want to be. They've gone deep into turn 3. Deep into turn 3. Lando Norris not going to be happy with that one, and Piastri still has the upper hand and will have the upper hand. Lando Norris surely not going to go purple in the first sector as we see them come into the left-hander of turn 6, and they are half a tenth down effectively right now on Oscar Piastri, but still a personal best, and it's still quick. It's Oscar Piastri who goes faster than anyone by a small margin, but still purple. Kimi Antonelli into the final sector now to finish their lap first. And then we will see Oliver Behrman go across the line as well. What's it going to be for Kimi Antonelli to finish their qualifying session off? It's P6 ahead of George Russell. It's actually George Russell will go across the line next. I do apologise. George Russell is gonna go to P2. Absolutely incredible for George Russell. Purple in the first sector for Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris goes purple in the middle. Will they get there? What's it gonna be for the Brit? Lando Norris. P4 to P. Oh, 2, he's just missed out on Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri not improving in the middle sector. They go across the line to try and take it away, to try and... Oh, no, they made a mistake at Stowe Corner as well. I do not believe it, and they're not going to improve. Absolutely incredible. Lewis Hamilton doesn't get the purple sector as it's taken away by Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, his teammate, is going to cross the line. Where's it going to be for Charles Leclerc, who struggled a bit to P4 ahead of Hamilton? Hamilton across the line. It's going to be P4. Oh, they will not get there. But it's Max Verstappen, who has still got a lap to do. Purple in the first sector. Absolutely rapid currently. I do not believe it. Hamilton couldn't quite get there, but that's brilliant from George Russell. And Oscar Piastri might hold it, but no. Here comes Max Verstappen, who's 2.5 tenths up. And I do not know what to say as long as they keep it clean at Stowe. And on the exit of the chicane, the pole position is theirs. Max Verstappen dialing it in. The final corner. It's surely going to be the Dutchman's day, and it will be. Max Verstappen on pole position for a tenth of a second ahead of Oscar Piastri to knock Lando Norris off the front row of the grid. Absolutely incredible. Wow. Didn't PB in the final sector, but it's absolutely mega. It was enough to make it work. Max Verstappen is on pole position for the Great British Grand Prix after qualifying massively, or struggling massively to set lap times in Friday's sessions. Wow. Max Verstappen on pole position. They've got some very fast McLarens on race pace behind them, but They have a pretty nice run into the first corner, flat out. They did lose it to Carlos Sainz, of course, but it's definitely going to be all right into the first few corners, and Oscar Piastri's got everything to do at the beginning of this Grand Prix. Losing it at the final corner, that's Oscar Piastri, wide on the final corner on the exit curb. That is where they lost pole position. Lando Norris just wasn't able to quite find it, cutting everything on entry into the chicane, and actually probably ended up losing time by doing so as they lost some of the balance. Lewis Hamilton, where did they lose out? Because they were looking to take pole position. Or was it just under the limit? I don't know. It seems to be all the final chicane for almost everybody. Hamilton, very aggressive over the curb and wrestling the wheel. So that's why they weren't able to do any more. I think they were happy with the lap, but just really messed it up. That final chicane, brutal. The final sector still not a PB from Verstappen, but they got ahead of everybody else when it mattered most. It's Norris, Russell, Hamilton, the three Brits from the top earlier on, just in a different order. Behrman to P8. Antonelli will start this race in P10. Behrman will start this race in P19 or 18. I'm not going to bother checking that too much right now because we're going to go through the order before the times disappear. It's Max Verstappen on pole position for the Great British Grand Prix with a 24.892. It's Piastri, a tenth behind almost exactly, a 24.995. Then it is Lando Norris, who just misses out in the front row, followed by George Russell to lock out the second row of the grid for the Brits. Then Hamilton follows on behind. Then Leclerc, Antonelli, Behrman, Alonso and Pierre Gasly in P10. Not able to do too much there. They were close to Fernando Alonso, but they're still going to be happy of being in the top 10. And they'll gain some positions, of course, because of the grid penalty. So starting P8 for Pierre Gasly there in the end. What a qualifying session we've had. Absolutely incredible. And I want to say thank you very much, everybody, for watching. It's been a pleasure. And good luck for tomorrow. I hope you enjoy the race tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. 9 votes there. The predictions were for Norris, Piastri, Hamilton and Antonelli. But it was Verstappen who got there in the end. And I said in Q2, maybe I'm a fool for not including them in the vote, but I guess I was proven wrong. Verstappen was in it for pole position. Again, thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you a little bit later on for the LSI Summer Season Saturday tier race in Monza. Enjoy the race tomorrow. I for sure will. Have a good one, and bye-bye.